Impact of medicine. We will start in this big history assignment discussing how the nature and its herbs affected humanity and how the natural history of the ingredients that have impacted medicine. Natural medicines and how they evolved currently, and how Canada has over 495 general medical doctors as of late 2019. In a recent Health magazine interview from 2018, over 52% of people used natural remedies or chose alternate treatments when it came to their health. Nowadays, it's natural to follow conventional Indian practices of ginger tea, inhalation of eucalyptus steam, and eating turmeric and honey. Turmeric is the oldest herb at about 4,000 years old and was grown in India, followed close by China's ginkgo and ginseng. The first herbs were discovered in Mesopotamia, dating 5,000 years back by the Sumerians, who created clay tablets to write lists of hundreds of medicinal plants such as myrrh, opium, laurel, caraway, thyme. Those date back as far as 60,000 years ago in Iraq. Bergamot and aloe vera gels and plant extracts were soon found to help heal wounds, lung-breathing ailments, and so on. The top medicinal plants were the aloe vera, the tulsi, the mint, fenugreek, fennel, and ginger. And the 5 species of plants of fig, nard, hyssop, balm of Gilead, and mandrake were all used with the leaves and the stalk roots. They were used to eat and make teas and squish up into clays, help make casts, and heal wounds. The human history of medicine, how it affected the human race, agriculture, and religion, just to name a few, are going to be listed in chronological order so that we can see how Threshold 6 and the aspect of collective learning was evident in the practice and impact of medicine. Ancient Chinese, 1700 BC to AD 220. Religion prohibited the dissection, so treatment of the body and the spirit was focused on. Started recording the herbs and started acupuncture. The Greeks from 1200 BC to 200 BC, they made observations about the human body and disease and how it affects and how its beliefs of illness were a result of natural causes. They used therapies like massage, art therapy, and herbs, and discovered diet and cleanliness could prevent disease. The Romans preferred prevention to cure when it came to health. They put their energies into public health facilities rather than following the medical theories from the Greeks. Roman medicine was dominated by ideas that arose from the needs for the army. The Romans did not continue investigating Greek theories of disease. They developed a different way from the Greeks. The Romans were down-to-earth people, and the wealth flowed into practical projects. This is why they had amazing engineer schemes such as those of the baths and aqueducts. Romans were a warrior race, and they made an immense investment in their armies, and it was their observation over the health of their soldiers that led the Romans to realize the importance of public health. Roman doctors learned a lot about the human body as they tended to gladiators wounded in the amphitheaters. However, dissection of humans were forbidden in the Roman Empire. Greek theory of the 4 humors, brought forth by Empedocles, named fire, air, earth, and water. They named those elements as the cause of disease. However, the Romans did not continue the Greeks' investigation into disease and rejected Greek ideas. The Romans understood that dirty conditions made people ill and provided many facilities such as public baths, sewers, and toilets to promote public health. The Greeks, the Romans, believed in personal health and hygiene. They coined the phrase a healthy mind and a healthy body. The Romans practiced exercise before meals, bathed their weak parts of the bodies in hot waters, copying Hippocrates' program of health. Also, they did gym exercises and deep breathing. In the Middle Ages, that was the period in between the Roman Empire and the Renaissance, which dated around 1450s. The Dark Ages are the first part of the period following the collapse of the Roman Empire. The High Middle Ages are the second part of the period. The Middle Ages were initially represented by Renaissance scholars, but it was a period of stagnation and ignorance. In 5th century AD, waves of barbarians, Goths, Vandals, Saxons, Vikings, they invaded Europe. Europe disintegrated into a huge number of small kingdoms which were governed by local lords and kings, and they protected their peasants. They couldn't afford universities or public health systems. Communication was difficult and dangerous because travel was slow. During the Dark Ages, monasteries managed to hang on to learning and even the ability to read and write. But many medical ideas of the Greeks and Romans were lost at that time, and they only survived in Muslim cities of the Middle East. Civilization began to recover in 1066. Universities were established, Oxford in 1167. Kings grew more powerful, and culture and wealth, trade, communication by sea, and health were factors and focused on. Medieval beliefs and the continuation of Threshold 6, collective learning, and Threshold 7, agriculture, were very prevalent in these times. 1258, Baghdad was destroyed by Mongols, and ancient knowledge had been retained in the east but lost in the west. Many of the books of the Greeks and Romans were lost. Even universities developed only after 1100. Although many medieval doctors continued to believe in the theory of the four humors, they also said disease was caused by demons, sin, bad smells, astrology, stagnant water, the stars, Jewish, etc. They believed life was controlled by God and his saints, and that the plagues, the Black Death, was a punishment. The Pope's doctor blamed the Black Death or bubonic plague, which killed over 60 million people, on the conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. Medieval surgeons realized how to use wine as an antiseptic, and they used natural substances, mandrake root, opium, gall of boar, hemlock, as anesthetics. Medieval surgeons could therefore do external surgery on problem areas such as the facial ulcers and even some eye cataracts. There was even internal surgery done with bladder stones. They had no idea still that dirt carried disease. Deep wounds still caused death from bleeding, shock, and infection, and some surgeons believed it was good to use the pus. Bad example of collective learning or passing down insufficient information was the hope to cure epileptic patients by triphoning the skull to let the demon out. This involved drilling a hole in the patient's skull. The Pope's doctor realized the importance of a good diet, and that a poor diet made people more vulnerable to the plague. Monasteries developed comprehensive systems in public health, like fresh running water, washrooms, flush latrines, running sewers. And nobles took regular baths, perhaps 2 a year. Towns had bathhouses, which were also restaurants and brothels. Kings passed laws requiring people to keep the streets clean, and city prostitutes to the outskirts. During the time of the plague, there were quarantine laws and boarded up houses with the infected people. People with leprosy were confined to lazar houses. In the Middle Ages, the first hospitals were built since the Roman times. Other doctors' equipment, which were carried around, were called posies, oranges, or light tapers. They believed that the bad smells carried disease, and they believed they could protect themselves from catching the disease by carrying something that smelled nice. They still believed in the theory of the four humors. Many of their cures involved balancing the humors overflowing. They did this by bleeding, applying leeches, causing purging, vomiting in their patients. They would balance the natural heat by taking hot baths, drinking yellow lentil, applying water with cool snow. They'd also use bamboo juice for smallpox, fig pulses for plague sores. In the 15th century, meaning the rebirth, a revival of learning occurred. Universities of medicine started, collective observations and science, and the scientific method was started. The invention of the printing press allowed for new ideas to spread through Europe. Discovery of America by Columbus meant new foods and medicines were brought back to the New World. Invention also of new weapons, gunpowder, led soldiers to get different kinds of wounds, and battlefield doctors had to deal with that. It was still not discovered yet the role that germs played in causing disease. In the early modern age, the knowledge of the human body progressing, it was the disease which still remained a mystery. Over the few centuries, the key people who made discoveries that impacted medicine, how it treats and heals us today. William Harvey discovered the principal circulation of the blood. Thomas Sydenham insisted doctors should visit the sick rather than the other way around. Parry discovered testing cautery was a way of healing. Doctors were unable to cure infectious disease. They did get new drugs, quinine for malaria from the New World, but generally treated a mixture of superstition and error. Culper's Complete Herbal 1653 was a compendium of healing substances. He recommended smoking tobacco, not a New World substance, as a wonder cure that would expel worms, ease toothache, help with snake bites, and kill lice. It was the first knowledge of vaccination. There were also cures for plagues, including letters with abracadabra written on them, posies and perfume, sherry, dried toad, leeches, potion of rue, wormwood, vinegar, rosewater, plucked chicken, to help with the plagues. In 1796, Edward Jenner discovered how vaccination can prevent disease by infecting people with cowpox who had smallpox. It was followed with emetic, purgative, and other purgatives as an example to how to treat someone. Enemas were used: antimony, sacred bitters, rock salt, mallow leaves, violet, beetroot, chamomile flowers, fennel seed, linseed, cinnamon, cardamom seed. Scalps were shaved, blisters were raised on it, saffron, aloes were used, sneezing powders, a hellebore root were used. They sought to strengthen brain power by giving cowslip flowers, drinks of barley water and licorice, sweet almonds, white wine, absinthe, extracts of thistle, rue, mint, and angelica. Bleeding, purging, melon seeds, manna, slippery elm, black cherry water, lily of the valley, lavender, quinine, cloves, nutmeg, gentian root. During the 18th century, there was a quickening in economic activity in the Western world called the Industrial Revolution. The process continued during the 19th century and with even greater quickening of invention and scientific discovery. There was huge progress in identifying and preventing many diseases. A great explosion of industry and industrial diseases such as dermatitis, lung function, and phossy jaw came into play. The right to health was one of the rights of man claimed by working people during the French Revolution. These new ideas about evolution from Darwin and genetics, Mendel, broke the control of the church over medicine and medical ethics. Pasteur's discovery that germs cause disease was a crucial turning point. Schwann from Germany in 1839 realized that animal matter was made up of cells, not humors. Funk in 1912 discovered the first vitamins and realized that some diseases were caused simply by poor diet. Knowledge about the body increased greatly in the 19th century. In 1904, petrochemicals and oils were used to start pharmaceutical industry. And homeopathic shamans and doctors of the Western world were ostracized by big pharma, and they started to take hold. Pasteur discovered that germs cause disease in the 1860s. Spin-offs of Pasteur's discovery was the pasteurization of milk, which prevented it from going sour by killing germs and sealing it from the air. Koch, who discovered how to stain and grow bacteria in a petri dish, was in 1878. He was able to find bacteria which then caused disease: septicemia, tuberculosis, cholera. In the same period, typhoid and pneumonia and plague was discovered. Lister invented the multi-lens microscope, which allowed doctors to see very tiny things accurately. Ludwig invented the kymograph, which allowed more accurate measurement of the pulse. Röntgen discovered X-rays and invented the electrocardiograph, which measured heart activity. Long used either an anesthetic while operating on a neck tumor, but did not publish details of that operation. Horace Wells in 1845 tried unsuccessfully to demonstrate that laughing gas would allow him to extract a tooth painlessly. In 1847, Simpson discovered chloroform. The discovery of cocaine was made for local anesthesia. Semmelweis from Hungary cut the death rate in his maternity ward by making the doctors wash their hands in calcium chloride solution before treating their patients. And in 1854, the standards of hospital cleanliness and nursing care rose rapidly because of the influence of Florence Nightingale. In Threshold 7's agriculture aspect, collective learning in 1865 was evidenced by Joseph Lister as he based his idea on Pasteur's germ theory, which cut the death rate among his patients from 46 to 15% by spraying instruments and bandages with 1 in 20 solution of carbolic acid. Beginning of aseptic surgery. was around 1890s, and then in 1901, the discovery of the blood groups and transfusions was made. Matching blood groups started to do this by matching the blood groups. In 1913, they discovered sodium citrate, which helped with blood clotting factors. The Industrial Revolution and the inventions of Röntgen discovered X-rays. This helped internal surgery, and then government agencies, which formed secretive infrared technologies, and that has since grown to overseas, and it protects us in the war and with other cryptid issues. The stethoscope was invented, which is when you listen to the patient's heart, and doctors make diagnosis on the basis of a full clinical examination of the signs made by the disease of the body. Pasteur developed an effective inoculation against anthrax and rabies. Home Medicine Encyclopedia of 1910 recommended cures that included electrical shock, injection, animal hormones, a range of harmful substances, including strychnine. Other alternative medical treatments included hypnotism, homeopathy, doses of poisons, and health reform, which included religious movements where they recommended healthy lifestyles. In 1907, school medical exams were ordered for all children. 1908, the old age pensions. In 1911, national insurance. 1931, the invention of the microscope allowed the doctors to see the bacteria and the viruses for the first time. And Watson discovered DNA in 1953, as well as Leroy discovered the stem cells. 1990s, the Human Genome Project was undertaken, where they studied 40,000 genes. In 2002, nearly 7 million cosmetic procedures were performed. During the 20th century, X-rays, CAT scans, MRI imaging, ultrasound scans, endoscopy, together with histology and biopsies, started to allow accurate and exact diagnosis of most illnesses. The pace of change had quickened during the Industrial Revolution. There was and is an ongoing explosion of invention and scientific discoveries. The discovery of vitamins allowed doctors to prescribe vitamin supplements, which helped with rickets and pernicious anemia. Communications technology made the world seem smaller, and this allowed medical ideas to spread rapidly, but also allowed diseases such as SARS to spread. And we are bearing witness on this in the current pandemic, which is fighting the mutated version of SARS called coronavirus, COVID-19, which has killed 1.6 million people as of December 12, 2020. Wars and epidemics and famines killed more people in the 20th century than they had in the whole rest of history. All these factors affected medicine in negative and positive ways. Nevertheless, people in new millennium compared to their grandparents are taller, heavier, healthier, and living longer. These positive outcomes will help as long as the new technology benefits mankind. And the impact of medicine can be seen for millennia to come, hopefully. Hope you enjoyed my assignment on the impact of medicine in regards to the big history.